Hello, welcome back for another edition of Better Decisions podcast. I am really, really excited to do this podcast today with my good friend Jesse. Jesse Stein is here in the office, and Jesse is one of those individuals. I'm going to introduce him first so you guys know. He's one of these rare individuals that actually really gets and understands marketing. And I say this with great respect for what you do, for where you've been and what you've learned over the years and what you share. Because we've had so many conversations of this, particularly real estate marketing right now, because you set up a company called Audience. That's how we met. So I want you to introduce yourself, explain a little bit about Audience, what it is, where you came from, maybe some background, and then I'm just going to start, throwing stuff at you as usual.
Thanks, David, for having me. Appreciate it. So I was born in California. Grew up between there and Santa Fe, New Mexico, spent most of my 20s in Tokyo, Japan. I went to Japanese college. I did door-to-door sales in Japanese. I was a journalist there for a while. And then ended up in Philadelphia for graduate school. I fooled the Wharton admissions committee for sure.
Good for you.
Somehow I got in there and graduated there in the late 90s. And I was just in the right place at the right time for the beginning of the commercial internet. Now the commercial internet's about 10,000 days old, but then it was in its infancy. Late 90s. Had just graduated from Wharton and had just gotten married to my amazing wife. We've been married 23 years. And we were living in the Village in New York City. My wife's nightstand for the first 3 years of our marriage was a computer because we had 8 computers in there. This is in 1999. And in the middle of the night, I would wake up to reset the wireless modems to submit all of our websites to Google. And at the time, it was Alta Vista and Yahoo and Northern Light and all Excite at Home and all these search engines that are now footnotes in history. And that's kind of how my internet digital marketing career began. And started an SEO agency right around that time with an amazing partner, Paul, who became my business partner for more than 10 years, and started a company called Soho Digital. The Village Digital, where I was living, just didn't sound good enough, so started Soho Digital, grew that into a $30 million interactive agency, and sold it in 2005. Wow. And there I really learned how to optimize for Google and the other search engines, learned how to build websites, do conversion rate optimization, buy online media, really the building blocks of digital marketing. And right around that time in 2005, I got super interested in domaining, in the landholders of the internet, the people who own these category-defining domain names. And after the year 2000, when the internet was kind of declared dead by a lot of people, Gillette let razorblades.com expire. A bunch of category-defining, amazing, one-of-a-kind domain names were just left to expire, and all these entrepreneurs picked them up and bought them by the thousands and hundreds of thousands. So in 2005, I paid a little over $1 million combined for hobbies.com, boating.com, yachting.com, biking.com, barbecuing.com. I was super interested in category-defining enthusiast domain names that have no synonym. And so bought those, and the one that really took off, I had no idea which one was going to be the winner, was sportsmemorabilia.com. And with a team of people, there's a common thread that runs through my career. With a team of people much smarter than me, we grew it into the biggest autograph store on the internet, a top 500 internet retailer, and we sold it to fanatics. And at Sportsmem, about 65% of our traffic was organic. So again, taking the lessons from the late 90s, early 2000s about optimizing for Google, taking it to the next level and building a top 500 internet retailer out of that. And then at the same time, it's funny, my wife and I were in a Sephora in New York City, and I'm like your typical guy. I thought, how can a skin cream cost more than $5? Like, this is impossible. But we were there. I was completely bored out of my mind. And my wife buys this $50, $60 skin cream, which is, as I learned later, totally normal. So I asked the clerk in Sephora, I said, show me the little section in your store where you have these really expensive skin creams. And of course, it was the entire store. And so that next Monday, I reached out to a bunch of laboratories, including one in France, and developed my own skin cream and named it Dermapril. And I added SP just because it sounded better, and sold almost $50 million of that in 18 months. This is in 2008, wow. 2009, all affiliate marketing, and then exited that business as well in 2009. And in 2009 started a company called DietSpotlight.com, which ended up becoming one of the biggest nutrition websites and is now today one of the biggest affiliates to Noom. And we don't have enough time, David, in this conversation for me to tell you about all the stuff that hasn't worked out, because I have tons of things and I consider them all learning experiences, but I don't get any wiser with age. I'm a total student, and I don't say that with false humility because it's absolutely true. And then what happened was, at sportsmemorabilia.com, just getting to the notes, we were sending handwritten notes to our customers. And our average customer spent a lot of money. You think about an autographed piece of memorabilia, average order size, $400 or $500. And we were sending these notes. We were having contractors and assistants and warehouse workers and framers handwrite these notes. Okay, so it wasn't at scale, but we noticed that the customers that received notes became collectors at a much higher rate than people who didn't receive notes. So it was back then that I thought, this could be interesting. And it was, this whole concept of the handwritten note was implanted in me, inception style, by my hero in life, my grandfather, who the graduation present he gave me when I graduated from Wharton, which he and my grandmother generously funded and gave me a chance in life, really, he gave me a beautiful fountain pen, and he looked at me and he said, with handwritten notes, you can connect with anyone. Because it was my grandfather. I used to go to work with my grandfather. He was in New York City, and I used to go when I was 6 years old, 7, 8, growing up. And he sold, he was a partner in a men's slacks company and a men's trousers company. And he had a bunch of accounts in New York City. And we would go account to account. He would have his sample case. And then every evening, without fail, I noticed he had his huge Rolodex and one of those old school 20-pound Rolodexes. And he would take the cards, and he had a stack of notes, and he hand wrote notes to clients. And I noticed he was handwriting notes, and that helped build his business. So flash forward to graduation, he gives me the fountain pen, which I still have today. And when of course, everything's DocuSign these days, but I symbolically use that pen to sign any important document. I'll take it out of our safe, and I'll remember my grandfather, Yudi. And today, and I'll get to audience, our handwriting machines are affectionately called Yudis, after my grandfather.
Love that.
But so what happened was, sportsmemorabilia.com, I noticed the power of handwritten notes, but there was no scale to it. The handwriting was embarrassing sometimes, because after you write, just try to write a long handwritten note.
Dude, I write like a dyslexic doctor. It's painful. I look at it, I don't even read my own handwriting sometimes, so I can't even imagine. That's why I work with you, because I couldn't do 1,000 handwritten notes that look like handwritten notes. But it's a brilliant, firstly, it's a brilliant backstory. And I think what it does is encapsulates where your knowledge comes from. Because I think it comes from real world application. That's the difference. As you said, your failures are, more than your successes, but they make your successes your successes.
That's right.
I love it. I didn't know a lot of that. Now, fast forward to audience, which is now running, and we started talking about audience as a business, and this comes into the field of real estate, of what we're doing today. I come from a marketing background too, which not as extensive as you, but the rabbit hole that we go down as marketeers is a deep one with no bottom. It just keeps going. And I know that part of the passion and love of this creativity process that we get into with marketing, there is a method to the madness. With audience, the defining of your success, are you defining that the success of audience is that authenticity to what you've created?
Absolutely. It's there's several levels to it, but it's for sure the most personal medium you can send is a handwritten note. The challenge with handwritten notes is that they're impossible to scale. We deal with a lot of Tom Ferry clients. Tom Ferry is wonderful. He's actually an investor in our company.
He's a super smart guy.
Yeah, and he invested in our company because he had never seen anything like it. Same with Douglas Elliman and a number of others, and we feel really fortunate. But Tom Ferry, Brian Buffini, and the other coaches, Larry over at Ninja Selling, they'll give their clients blank handwritten notes and say, you need to send 2 handwritten notes a day or 20 a month or 30 or whatever the prescription is. I'm yet to meet, and we take thousands of demos a month with real estate agents, I'm yet to meet an agent that has managed to scale handwritten notes. Plus, it's just not the best and highest use of your time. The handwritten note has to be long. We've correlated character length with response rate, and 750 characters is exactly where you want to be. And 750 characters is a long note.
We'll flash this up actually on the screen when you see this, and maybe it's correlated directly to the amount of effort. I mean, it's like, okay, I put a lot of effort in for someone, but with that commitment to write or that many words shows that, okay, well, this person put in effort here. Right. This person put in the time and the effort to reach out to me. Now, the message itself, and this is what I wanted to do in this podcast, was obviously a highlight audience. I wanted to expand beyond audience into the wider integrated parts of all the marketing that exists within our world, because I think one of the misconceptions, and we've talked about this a lot, is that you deal with a lot of realtors. I deal with them every day as incorporating partners in deals that I'm doing either on the buying or the selling side. But there is within the last couple of years, obviously a lot of real estate transactions that occurred. There's been a lot of success within the markets. What I'm seeing now, obviously, is a return more to the norm, a pullback. There is a situation where you've got to be really good to do well. If you want to do well, you've got to be legitimately good at what you do. And that means not turning to someone like yourself and saying, fix all my problems. And I say this to my clients who, my vested interest of this podcast is buyers and sellers who watch this and say, here's someone who actually gets it, who understands that marketing is more than just a trick. You're not trying to trick anyone, to be clear. It's not like you're trying to trick someone to make them believe they read a handwritten note. You're trying to elevate them above the rest of the audience, the noise, so that they can put their legitimate, sincere, and very real message across to the client for a very real deal.
Yeah, I think the overarching objective of any integrated marketing plan is to be useful and to become their trusted advisor, to educate, to serve, to guide, to advise. And so in a handwritten note, because it has a near 100% open and read rate, the message actually gets read. So and if you bother, which we do, to create a unique graphic suite for the client, so the front of note graphic aligns with that homeowner's area, and you put a local landmark and then make it aesthetically beautiful, and then if it's a bifold note, they're much more likely to keep and display it. And so what you're doing with the note is you're kind of, in a way, define the time-space continuum, unlike other marketing channels like email, which typically get chucked. And although you have
or
to,
not even open. Emails are right now. We are so drowned in email. I don't know how many emails I get a day, and I do not know how many. I definitely don't read all of them. I definitely don't even skim all of them. Some I just delete straight out of because I know what they are, and I'm not even going to get to them. And then that's not even counting all the stuff that goes into my trash folder or my spam folder that gets recognized as spam marketing, and I don't even see it. And firewalls being what they are in so many businesses, you're not going to there's some very important people that you're trying to reach. You're not going to reach them through traditional means.
Right.
I don't expect.
Now, the diabolical shortcut with email we've found is if you're sending that homeowner a handwritten note at least every 2 months, and the handwritten note is thoughtful, and again, you asked about content before, you're advising them, you're helping them, you're building expertise, authority, and trust. And if you're doing this consistently, and then if you follow up, the fortunes in the follow-up, we all know that the fortune's in the follow-up. And so if you follow up with an email, what we do is we enrich all the homeowner data with email addresses for both primary owner and secondary owner. And we also get our clients the LinkedIn profiles, which I can talk about in a second. So
I love LinkedIn.
Yeah.
You actually helped me. Jesse gave me a little benefit last week of saying, okay, there's a division within LinkedIn to help you get hold of the corporate list, to reach out to people, because there's a lot more than just, I want to be clear, you're a lot more than just audience. Your ability spans beyond that, and our conversations, I thank you for, have allowed me to understand and fine-tune some of the other aspects within my marketing, because I spend, and I take maybe false pride to a degree in some of the stuff that I can do digitally better than some of my peers. And I know I'm a long way from where I want to be. I'm very far from being perfect at this. Like you, I'm an eternal student just trying to make a better mousetrap, but add value at the end of that. Once you get that piece of cheese, there's value to that. I'm working hard and recognizing there's so many avenues of this marketing business that you go into and you recognize works so much in conjunction with the handwritten note. It's the emails, the LinkedIn, it's Google presence, it's all these elements, and underpinning all of it, a really valuable message. There's a value add of what that agent is saying. And in my case, we're all about education. The whole reason this podcast exists, the very reason I started this, is so that I could expand the horizons of education within my sphere and within the industry of real estate, so that people could watch this and say, here's a guy who knows some stuff, but he's going to surround himself and meet and talk to other people who know a lot more, and then from that going to draw and understand and help share with me valuable information, data, social narrative, analytics, statistics, whatever it might be, to make a better decision, hence the name.
Absolutely. And you do that very, very well. And so when people think of you, there's that built-in trust, and trust is everything. Good example is Hilton Hotels. About 5 years ago, they took all their concierges in North America and they gave them a mission, which is Mr. or Mrs. Concierge in the Hilton Nashville. We want you to go online every day and monitor these different forums, this social media, and anything that involves Nashville and travel to Nashville. I want you to comment. So the question is, let's say that someone asked a question somewhere on social media or on a forum somewhere on Quora.com about what's the best brunch spot in Nashville? So should the concierge at the Hilton Nashville respond with one, well, actually, the Hilton Nashville has a fantastic brunch. I recommend you come. Option 2, well, there's a brunch spot about 3 blocks from our wonderful Hilton Hotel in Nashville. Or option 3, should that concierge say, actually, there's this wonderful restaurant called Yoke, and ask for the waiter, Jerry, and get there before 11 a.m. because it's very crowded, and order the Eggs Benedict. It's phenomenal. Clearly, it's option 3. And so what you do is you're a trusted advisor, even if it means leaving money on the table. That's it. And as long as you're a trusted advisor, it'll come back to you several-fold. In this market, this is a shifting market with rising interest rates and macroeconomic headwinds and so forth. The market's shifting quickly. What happens is a lot of fair weather real estate agents, ones that aren't trailblazers, ones that aren't the very top real estate agents, they run for cover. They batten down the hatches. They pull back. And what that does is it creates this incredible opening, the same way it did in 08, 09, 10, for top agents like you to come in and educate, advise. Because now homeowners, by definition, are not getting nearly as inundated by marketing because so many agents have pulled back their marketing spend. So just like, it's just like clockwork. So what'll happen is the agents that double down, not on expenses, but the agents that double down on investments, like audience, like other marketing programs, they're the ones who win. But getting back to the email just very quickly, just to put a bow around that package. So if you if you're really thoughtful about email, it can work. For example, if you send a handwritten note to a homeowner and then a week later send an email with a subject line that says, "Did you receive my handwritten note?" And then in the body of the email say, "Hi, Jane and Joe, just wanted to confirm that you got the handwritten note I sent to your address here." That gets an 8 to 12% response rate, depending, which everyone knows an email is.
That's really high. If you follow normal marketing trends, I think the rate is like 1% normally.
What most people do with their newsletter marketing is they'll spend a lot of time, let's say on a market report, and they'll create this beautiful market report, and they'll send it to their list. And that's it. The people that opened it and responded to it, great. The people that didn't may as well be trees falling in the forest that you'll never hear. And so what you do is, it's called the second send. You want to, a week later, take a look at all the people who didn't open it, and you send them the same newsletter, but to avoid the promotions tab or the junk folder in Gmail, for example, you need to change up the subject line. As long as you change up the subject line, and a week later, you send that same email to anyone who didn't open that email, you'll get
a better open. Yeah. These are like little tidbits of information, and I know there's a lot of realtors who watch this as well. Outside of the audience base, we have about 9,000 regular readers of our articles on our database. He keep coming back and back and back. This is gold.
I can give you some bigger ones later.
No, I know. I'm gonna keep you here for hours, dude. I'm not letting you go. I'm gonna squeeze you for every bit of information out of that brain of yours.
Done.
It's really fascinating to see that the way that you reverse engineer the real psychology of the market with the mindset of, how do I get what I know to be a valuable piece of information to that audience? And it's not doing it once. I think that's one of the biggest misconstrued. It's so obvious, and everyone talks about it. And Tom Ferry goes on about this all the time, and he goes, 85% of people, 85% of realtors will send one piece of marketing information. The 15% is the one who will follow up with a second piece. And less than that, by the time you get 4, 5, 6 pieces, there's a tiny percentage of people who are actually following up with additional information to stay in touch. But we all know for fact that in order for you to evoke a response with any audience in any market, in any sphere, service or product, people need to see something 10 to 15 times before it elicits a reaction. So isn't it just completely insane to come in and just do one piece and say, okay, I'm done now.
Yeah.
Can I go home and just wait for the phone to pick up and call? Doesn't work. That's why retargeting is so effective.
That's why retargeting is so effective. Yeah, and what I think probably a lot of those agents or just marketers don't realize when they cut it off is that, for example, with handwritten notes or any communication, if you stop the communication to a homeowner that you're trying to cultivate and eventually turn into a listing opportunity, let's say, that homeowner, if you stop, will think either you're out of the business completely, you're not working their neighborhood, or you don't care enough about them to really cultivate them. A great example is my wife and I recently listed our home with an incredible real estate agent, the best there is. And it's a real shame. And we would have listed with David anyway, but the person that sold us our home, guess how many times she reached out to us in the intervening 11 years since she sold us our home. Just take a stab at it. 0. I know it seems incredible, but 0. And she's a wonderful person, but the fortune's in the follow-up. She never followed up.
Yeah.
At the other end of the continuum is Chris Heller. Chris Heller, also an audience investor, very happy audience client. He's become a good friend. He was the CEO of Keller Williams Worldwide. And before that, he was their number 1 agent out of 140,000 agents. And I've asked him, it's very interesting to me, people like you, success leaves clues. And so it's like, I want to get into your mind. There's so much I don't know. So I asked Chris, and we were at dinner, and I said, why? I get that you're super hardworking. I get that you won the national objection handling contest. I get that you have all these incredible qualities. but what's some of the secret sauce? And he said, well, it's not so secret because everyone talks about this, but he said 15 to 20 touches a year to your sphere. Handwritten notes, email, phone calls, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, give me an example. And he said, actually, I have an example right here. This is an email I received yesterday from a buyer that I didn't even represent in 2003, nearly 20 years ago. And he showed me this email. I said, what do you mean you didn't represent the buyer? You mean it's an orphan buyer? And he said, exactly. He said, I represented the seller, and then the buyer's agent didn't even bother to keep in touch with the buyer. And guess what? He sends a note after 30 days saying, hi, very non-threatening to the buyer's agent. Hi, I'm Chris Heller, and I'm the person that represented the seller who just sold you your home. I bet you're settling in nicely. Congratulations. The home is beautiful. If you have any questions for the seller that your agent can't necessarily answer, I would be thrilled to connect you and the seller. And that's the first note. And then there's a chain of notes that happens. Well, this happened for 20 years with this buyer. And Chris shows me this email. And there's the buyer saying, I am in the market to buy a home now. You are the only, this is beautiful. You are the only agent that even bothered to stay in touch. And boy, did you. And he got the deal. Chris Heller's sold more than 4,000 homes and was CEO of Keller Williams. So talk about, and it's the same playbook that you run.
It's true.
Becoming the trusted
It's true.
advisor.
I've learned through my mistakes that in the process of my 15-year career, I dropped the ball a number of times, and each time I do it, I'm like, what was I thinking? And I realized how easy it is because it's your client. You have their number, for God's sake. You have their email address. You have a direct line to them when a lot of people don't. What I've found is that within our industry, we have a lot of agents who feel like slavery still exists and that they own clients like chattel, and that regardless of whether they sold them a house now or 5 years ago, they own them. Well, guess what? You don't. You don't own anybody. You get them or you keep them because you serve them and you look after them and you respect them because you go through all that effort to help them buy a home or a condo, and then you just ignore them, which tells them one very clear message: you did it for the money. That's it. And I feel like we all have a lot of clients. We're very, very busy, and that's why some of the automated systems help to be in touch with people. But I agree that handwritten personal contact makes people feel special because it's a very intimate process. Now, as we're going through this crazy moment of change, what I find is that within the industry, and I think I'm gonna call it what it is, there is a culture within real estate to talk about the most self-serving aspect. This industry is a self-serving mechanism. How can I go out, look awesomely cool, drive a cool car, look like I'm having the most amazing time that anyone's ever had with their clothes on and without alcohol involved, and I do this every single day, 365 days a year. No, it's not actually like that, and they just want to look good. And the reality is that it's all about doing the deal, closing the deal, making money, moving on to the next one. And I think that is one of the biggest problems that we have within the industry, because the real work, the real hard work, you can get lucky and sell one house now and again that's really big and get a great client, but you can't consistently do it. And there's a follow-up and a follow-up and follow-up. You have to be kind of obsessive over it, but you've got to do it for the right reasons. And that's what I love about the audience. It allows you to keep the contact going. And then on top of that, the reality is, and I say this to my team, it's down to you. Still got to pick up the phone. You've got to call. You've got to be in contact with them. And it's not going to happen by one phone call. I don't think I've ever had it when I've knocked on someone's door and they go, oh my God, I've been waiting for you for like weeks, and thank God you're here because I'm so ready to list my house. Right. I show my team and I say to my team all the time, look, I've got clients that I've been in contact with them for a year, like twice a month, every month, more than a year, and I'm just there. But I'm not there like, hi, I'm a realtor. That's annoying. It's more like, I want to share some information with you. I've got software here. I've got an article. I've got this great bit of information that I just found out what's going on in the market over here. There's whatever it might be. As long as it adds value to the client, there's a good reason to have that conversation.
That's it.
That's it. And just keep doing it. And if you keep adding value, it's like being healthy. I use the same analogy, like that secret sauce that you put. That secret sauce is not secret. It's just a lot of work in the kitchen.
Yeah. It's an everyday thing. With the notes, they enforce a kind of discipline in your geographic farming and your sphere nurture and put it all on autopilot. So it gives you back a bunch of hours into your day that you didn't have before. So you can then follow up. And then what the notes do, they make it very hard on our competition. Actually, a client the other day put it very well. He said, as long as I'm sending audience notes to my sphere and my farms, the drawbridge to my castle is always up. It'll never go down over the moat for competitors to storm my castle because I'm going to be, it's not a guarantee, but it really helps me be top of mind. So when people are ready to take action, because I don't know, if we knew who was going to sell their house, I would tell you whose door to knock on right now. But we don't know. And
I haven't figured that out either.
My crystal ball is broken. So the way to do it is to be persistent and consistent. So with the notes, it helps you play offense because they knock free listings, even in the tightest markets, even in markets that are shifting like this. They help you play defense in the way that your castle drawbridge is never down, and it makes it hard on competition. But the third thing, which I think is the most valuable, is the notes remove friction to your follow-up. And that's why I named the company Audience and not something old school with handwriting or something else in the name, because it's all about taking a cold audience, cold homeowner, for example, warming up that audience. And that's the holy grail of marketing, is once you have a warm audience, now follow-up is so much easier. You could door knock and offer David Siddons brownies. That person's like, oh, you're the one, I have your notes right on my counter. Wow. And
I do that. I do give people brownies.
Yeah, I know. And
they're just normal brownies. They're nothing special.
Not sweet. So it makes the follow-up process much easier, and that's critical.
Well, no relationship, no friendship is born from an initial contact where we say, look, I go in somewhere and I get introduced to someone and I'll be like, hi, I'm David. Nice to meet you. I'm a real estate broker. Or we just have a conversation and then you go, well, nice to meet you. See you later. And then they go off and then you never talk to them again. That's not a relationship. People misconstrue digital marketing and outreach once as some form of relationship that then is deemed enough or satisfactory to have them want to do business with you and work with you and choose you. In the same way that we don't have a friendship by an introduction, but if I keep talking to you, coming back to you, and we nurture that relationship by conversation that adds value to both sides, guess what? We develop a friendship. And then we develop a bond, and that's why we are where we are here today, which I think is awesome. And it's one of the most fun parts of my job, is to be able to sit down and kind of go through this arena of our business in a way like, where can we make this a better circumstance? Thinking, and again, I'm just spitballing ideas here. When we're getting into the frustrations of the industry and the message out there, I think right now, particularly for home buyers, there's a lot of concerns on both sides for buyers and sellers. There's a bit of a standoff right now, and I feel like with marketing now more than ever, people look at it, especially a year and a half ago, where I could put a bottle, stick a flag on it, put a price on it, run an open house, and I'd have a line of 50 people down the street. It was insane. It was too easy, and it wasn't real, and there was and people's success didn't come off the back of their skills. It just came off of being the right place in the right time, that you were the one guy in the desert holding a bottle of water.
Exactly. So every misfire I've ever had in my career is because I didn't have the right skills and tools. Things are easy when the tide is rising and it lifts all ships, and you can, just to mix metaphors, and you can be the rooster taking credit for the sun rising, which probably a lot of real estate agents were, because you show up, and it's not that easy, of course, but it's in these markets that really test your skills and tools. So that's why I'm really interested, not only with the notes, like what we do is we deliver the notes, but we also deliver a comprehensive digital marketing training to our clients. So they leave and they say, my gosh, I came for handwritten notes. I got this amazing targeting database. And so we don't send a single note before we laser target the leads. And so for real estate agents, for example, we'll send the notes only to the most likely to sell properties. And we've got 200 plus filters. I just got off the phone with one of the biggest Allstate insurance agents, and we're doing a lot of lead targeting for that agent. But what I tell people if they ask me, okay, well, how do I get started in digital marketing? Like, what's the most important thing? I said, well, there's a lot of, like anything, there's a lot of things that are important. But one thing I always advise people, and you really have lived this, is never build your digital business on rented land. What I mean by that is own your own website. First of all, own your own assets. This podcast and the amazing people that make it happen, this is an incredible evergreen, which means it will last for many, many years, asset. And so a good example, even if you work for the best brokerage on planet Earth, Douglas Elliman, you should have an equivalent of Lux Life Miami blog where you are positioning yourself as the authority. So have your own website that you cultivate. So the question then becomes, all right, geez, what content do I post? So what I often tell people who are in a hurry, maybe digital marketing is a total black box for them, and they're just getting started, they're really intimidated, and they've tried digital marketing in the past, and digital marketing is a shiny penny. And it's you pick it up and it's novel and it's fun and it's new, and you hire that SEO agency, and then the SEO agency completely messes up your SEO.
Yeah, SEO companies, a lot of companies don't want to do SEO anymore because the reality, just like anything in this world, there's no secret sauce to it. It's just hard work, consistent hard work. Yep. So in SEO companies now, a lot of actually the guys that develop a lot of websites say to me openly, I do not want to do the SEO. Mm-hmm. And I think if we break down the marketing pieces, so maybe if you're trying to figure out who to hire to sell your home or to buy a home with, there are key elements of marketing that we have in play that you talk about all the time and you share with other realtors, and I'm open to share them with the audience with you, because at the end of the day, it's not a secret, it's just a lot of hard work. But there is obviously that outreach through the handwritten notes. Yep. There is the email. There is the CRM system follow-up, the way you can send out the notes again and the emails again. There is having a good digital footprint on social media so people see your content, see what you're putting out, like this podcast, that you'll go and see it on, you'll see it on Instagram, you'll see it on YouTube, you'll see it on Spotify, and then all the other elements like your website, and they all play a part together, integral of each other, because your clients will bounce from different
platforms and channels.
Exactly.
100%. Yeah. Meet your clients and prospects where they are. And one of the hacks I teach as well is, so people consume content in very different ways, surprisingly. One might think because you listen to podcasts, for example, or you like YouTube, or you like TikTok, or you consume content on LinkedIn, or you read physical books, or you're a Kindle person, that everyone else must be that way. And in fact, there's very little overlap. And so something that you get well is you need to invest in, for example, a Hootsuite, which would be a social media management platform where you are distributing your content across all the platforms, because you never know where your prospects and customers are going to be. So you need to do that. And then you need to develop that toolkit so you're not running enthusiastically in the wrong direction in digital marketing. It happens all the time. For example, email. What people do with email is they sell relentlessly. And what my teenage boys would call in a way that's cringy. They're selling. In fact, 1 in 4 of your email newsletters maximum should be promotional. The other 3 and more, if you can, should be educational, should be advising, should be helping exactly in the way that you do. Because if someone types in waterfront Miami homes and they see your blog there, and they see an article where you're not selling anything, you're helping, you're assisting, they see that, they get a door knock from you, and then they take a brownie. They get retargeted with ads, but not ads pounding, list your home, list your home. No. A carousel of 6 different articles that they can choose from to educate themselves. And this is a customer. Now you know this customer is interested in Miami waterfront homes, and that customer will end up coming to you. That whole philosophy is called inbound marketing. It was pioneered by HubSpot and has amazing acolytes like you who have educated, helped, and then guess what happens? You end up reaping all the rewards.
Yeah, and this is also measurable. That's the other thing. I mean, like, pay attention to the dashboard. Like, flying an aeroplane, all you got to do is look at the dials in front of you. Look at the dials, understand what they're saying, read them, pay attention to them. Don't close your eyes and expect not to fly into the side of a mountain. And all of these great tools out there, they're all measurable. And that's why I always say when you hire someone as a broker, as a realtor, they should be able to illustrate to you what they're doing, because blind faith is insane. I always say real estate's like the second biggest asset class in the world. It's trillions of dollars. And behind the stock market and the analytics that the stock market has with the Bloomberg terminals and all these analysts and all these hedge funds and banks, they have thousands upon thousands of people poring over this data, looking at it, paying attention to it. And what do we have? In real estate, we have a bunch of people that get 63 hours of training, then they spend their time looking at an MLS, and then they'll come out with comments like I've seen right now, where it's always an amazing time to buy real estate. If you bought real estate 30 years ago, then you should be buying real estate today, because ultimately the value of real estate always goes up. Well, that's just dumb, because what happens if they need to sell in 3 years from now, or 2 years from now, or a year from now, or their life circumstances change? Not every investor, every buyer is prepared to go through the ups and downs of the market. They're not sometimes emotionally equipped to do that. And that's why you have to tell them, have to be aware of them and read them. So that, and I've had this with clients in the last few weeks where I've said, I am purposefully not going to sell you anything right now. I'm not going to tell you to buy this product because it's not the right time to buy this product for you. I'm going to keep you on ice. I'm going to tell you when it is, and I'm going to show you why it is the right time, when it's the right time, not just look out for a quick commission check. And that's one of the biggest gripes that I've got by people who come online and they talk absolute nonsense, because everyone's got a microphone and an iPhone, and everybody has an opinion, and Andy Warhol's given the whole world their 15 minutes of fame. But that doesn't mean a quip that people should listen to them.
That's true. Absolutely. So people often ask, okay, there's digital marketing, and marketing in general is so complicated. Where do I start? Okay, I understand that I shouldn't build my business on rented land. I understand that I should buy my own website. Where do I start? And so a hack, which involves a couple of really easy to follow steps that I give people, is, okay, the first principle here is you need to become the trusted advisor for life. Let's assume, first of all, I want to make sure you want to make this your career. Right? Because if you're a toe dipper, if you're a dabbler, if you don't like being in front of a camera or aren't willing to learn, if you aren't going to create analysis to help people that's beyond what they could just find by a simple Google search, then you're probably in the wrong profession. So let's confirm first, are you willing to make this a career and go for it and be all in and not be a dabbler and not be a toe dipper? And if the answer is yes, whether you're in real estate or insurance or in ceiling fans, it doesn't matter, then okay. Step one then, if the first principle is you want to build this expertise, authority, and trust, is you need to answer people's questions, number one. And answering people's questions is something you alluded to before, which is like you go to social media, and let's say you're a Scottsdale real estate agent. You should have antennae behind antennae that are picking up on via a bunch of Google searches and searches inside of Facebook and Instagram and, yes, TikTok. TikTok is not just for selling hoodies to 14-year-olds anymore.
Really? I'm not watching TikTok for the Dougies to do the Dougie anymore.
Exactly. Some of the most forward-looking real estate agents are all over TikTok and quietly making a ton of money. It's the same way that you and I got connected via LinkedIn. And you were leveraging LinkedIn in ways that other real estate agents were not. So what I encourage people to do, if you're a Scottsdale real estate agent, is you need to be on Quora.com and you need to answer every imaginable question that's being asked about Scottsdale real estate. And then if questions aren't being asked that should be asked, you can ask and answer them yourself, as long as you're not selling yourself. You are educating and advising and helping. And so the question then becomes, how do I generate the list of questions? Okay, ready for this awesome diabolical shortcut. So what you do is you go to Google and you type in your head keyword. It's like your main keyword. So in this case, it would be Scottsdale real estate, not agent, because you're not looking for that. You're looking for people who are researching Scottsdale real estate. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the main keywords that you're going after. Well, if you scroll below on Google search results page, everyone has probably seen that area that people also ask. What you do there, you see about 4 questions typically there. Okay. Click on those questions. When you're clicking on those questions, so you can do this in your mind's eye or do this as you're listening to this, you're clicking on the questions, it spawns more questions. It typically taps out at 70 or 80 questions. This is all of Google's algorithmic processing power, the distilled reduction sauce of Google's algorithm about Scottsdale real estate. These are all the most popular questions, all the most authoritative questions. Most importantly, Google gives you the most authoritative snippet of the answer right there. So what you do is you open up an Excel or a Google Sheet and you input in column A will be the keyword, Scottsdale real estate. Column B will be the question, one of those 70 or 80 questions. Column C will be the answer, okay? You copy and paste. So you're about 30 minutes in on this hack so far, and you have all of Google's algorithmic processing power right there on a spreadsheet. And again, you want to type in other keywords as well, and maybe have a couple hundred rows to this spreadsheet. Step 2, because you cannot just then take those answers and paste them onto Quora or onto your own website. That's duplicate content. Google won't even pay attention to it. They won't even crawl your site after a while. They'll start ignoring it. So what you do is you go to a platform, like one of my favorite platforms to hire writers is writeraccess.com, WRITER, access.com. Textbroker is another one of them. Upwork can be good for writers, but my favorite is writeraccess.com, which is basically the Uber of writers. So you get to see who is a 5-star writer who responds quickly, and for 4 or 5 cents a word, you can have that writer take all of those answers and reword them a week later. And what I'm going to ask you to do is get 2 copies. I don't care what profession you're in. If you are an entrepreneur, solo entrepreneur, you have a Fortune 500 company, makes no difference. Do this and it'll blow you away. So have the writer create 2 different versions of that. Now you're a couple $100 in, and you take the first version, and I want you to create a Q&A or FAQ on your website. Remember this owned and operated asset you have. And the reason why I want you to take that FAQ, basically, that you've just created of a couple hundred questions is because 50% of searches now are voice search through Siri, through Alexa, through Google Voice. And when you do that in that structured format, Google's bot, their crawler, will immediately recognize it as an FAQ. And those bite-sized chunks, those short, snappy answers are perfect. When someone asks Siri, when someone asks Alexa, you'll start coming up in those searches, and your prospects will notice that. And in the second copy, I want you to go to Quora, go to social media, start answering people's questions. If they haven't even asked that question, well, you're a real estate agent. You should be a member of those private Facebook groups like Real Estate Mastermind, which has like 75,000 agents. You should be asking and answering questions, and you should be out there in Scottsdale forums and so forth asking and answering questions. So that's an amazing way to build instant expertise, authority, and trust.
Genius. You know, it like everything, it's going to require some work. It requires time. People will probably listen to this and go, oh, that sounds so lot. Well, yes, it is. And that's why, you know, I always smile and laugh when people come in and say, oh, I'm going to do it for sale by owner, or I'm just going to hire this guy who's going to sell my house for 1%. Well, guess what? You get what you pay for. And there's a reason why at the high level, you don't do it yourself. I don't do my own dental work, and I wouldn't perform to fix a broken leg on myself if I had one. It's the same thing when you get to something that requires a high skill set. You don't try and do it yourself. But it does require labor, it's effort, it's time. But like anything in this world, anything worth having isn't easy. There is no shortcut. Actually, I think it was a couple of days ago we were talking, and you said something that was really, it resonated with me, which was the basis of where Google came from as an answer for Harvard to get questions and answers and papers, academia that people would draw from. And I think that's why, you know, Google is that you want a better answer, come up with a better question. We'll give you the better questions, and now you have the better answers. This process that you go into in learning requires you to be very cerebral and thoughtful about what you're putting out. Don't write garbage. Write thoughtfully. Write as if you were writing a dissertation and you're trying to get your master's in economics. Don't just regurgitate the first thing that you happen to hear on the last TikTok video or podcast that you heard from someone who has and there's a lot of that out there. There's so much when I Google things like Miami real estate news and reports and Miami real estate trends and forecasts, there are some people who, don't get me wrong, say some very smart stuff and they're thoughtful about it. There's also a lot of nonsense. There's a lot of like half-baked, non-researched, regurgitated, secondhand news, bits of information that go out there that quite honestly don't make any sense at all. I mean, you listen to it and you go, that's just complete nonsense. It's not even a cohesive sentence.
Yeah,
it's scary.
Mice with microphones.
Mice with microphones. But this is the beauty of what you're talking about here, is that there is a thoughtful process in this, because the thoughtful process is designed to create a value, and you can't create value with nonsense.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the first principles of doing internet marketing right is don't be a pioneer. And let me explain what I mean by that. So Google, for example, was not a pioneer. It was the 23rd search engine launched. They did not invent the search engine, but they did it better than anyone else. Apple and iPhone, they certainly didn't invent the smartphone. On the internet, you can easily reverse engineer people, because
I do it all the time.
So you do it all the time, and great digital marketers do it all the time. But there's a right way to do it and a lot of wrong ways to do it. And the thing is, people think they need to be a pioneer with their content, but pioneers typically end up face down in the dirt, dead with arrows in their back. And so, don't be a pioneer. You need to learn from people that have been there, done that. And so the question becomes, all right, how do I really, really project myself as the authority? And there's a lot of ingredients in that soup. But I talked about the FAQ. I talked about leveraging Google, so not being a pioneer, standing on the shoulders of giants, in this case, Google, and taking all those questions and answers, having them rewritten, posting one as an FAQ, and then answering people's questions on the other side. So step 2 is you want to, if you're serious about being an authoritative Scottsdale real estate agent, then you need to have on your site, and you alluded to a dissertation, you need to have head, shoulders, and torso the best article on Scottsdale real estate, period. That's where you start. And I'll explain why. When you post a 5 or 6 or 7,000 word article on dietspotlight.com, for example, when we're writing about keto diet, which is highly competitive, we would post 25,000 word articles to build authority.
It's a big white paper.
It's a huge white paper that we'd spend months on with graphics and videos, and we had our own video studio and everything. And the more competitive the keywords are, the crazier you need to be about delivering value. What Google is all about is something called user task accomplishment. That means Google is constantly looking at the traffic that comes to their search results to your site, let's say Lux Life Miami blog, and then how often is it that they then navigate back to Google search results because they didn't get what they wanted? User task accomplishment. And in the case of your site, because it's so in-depth and because users end up navigating around and getting lost in the site in a good way, they pogo, as Google says, they pogo much less than other people competing against you. And that's why you're number one for so many keywords.
Well, there's a lot of the process in real estate websites, and we'll get into that for a second because it's kind of an interesting rabbit hole. That I have spent thousands, tens of thousands of hours sitting up. My wife, I'm so sorry, honey, I spent way too much time doing that sometimes. Writing articles, long articles, reading them, trying to make sure that they made sense, connecting them and trying to answer questions. It's a labor of love. And it's almost like the mad scientist of like, here's a hypothesis, let me go down it. And I got it wrong as many times as I got it right, in fact, more so. But in the process, what I discovered was that this content creation, this value content creation, over time as it ballooned and got almost bloated, I had to go back and make sure this was a readable interface system, something that made sense, not just a big hodgepodge of information. It's not like throwing cans of paint on the wall and making a painting look good, because that's what it is sometimes. It feels like you've got a canvas and you've got someone just throwing paint onto the wall, hoping that some of it might collage together and make into a comprehensive picture. Well, guess what? It's not. It's just going to look like a mess. And that's why, as my site grew, I had to go back, rewire it, retune it, reformat it to a level where you can go from now section to section and it's almost intuitive. And as it gets bigger and more complex, and as an eternal student, you realize how little you know, so you keep wanting to add and add to it. But this structure, this formatted way of creating content has to come in a manner that if you're going to create, an Amazon, you're going to create something that isn't necessarily the first into the industry, but it operates as the best. You've got to pay a lot of attention to it. And you've got to work out that the silos and pattern structure for your articles and your reports is easily found and crawlable from Google, makes sense, doesn't have a lot of mess to it. There's no broken links. There's no kind of like, I don't know how I got to this page. Now how the hell do I get out of it?
Yeah.
Because that's easy to do too.
Yeah, for sure.
And my whole business was built off, I build a media company. And I look at most real estate websites right now, and they follow exactly the same format. And there's so many companies out there that will sell you and build you a website, and they look exactly the same. Here's an ability to search the MLS. Here's some details on the neighborhoods. Here's a profile on the agent and their team. And here's why you should hire them. And here's their exclusive listings.
Yeah, and here's a home value calculator.
And here's a home value calculator if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a regurgitated brokerage report. But that's it. There's no evolution of thought. It just stops. And so they get that information, and as the results of information and education stop at that point, they then leave to find something else. And that's why we like to say that, there's 2,000 articles on my website, over 2,000. There's over video counts like 600 plus. There's over 100 reports. There's just so much information in there that we're proud of, that we go back and we fix and we correct and we try to keep it up to date, and we try to do a 2022 version of a 2019 article, and we're rewriting and rewriting and rewriting. And Paul Luce, our marketing director, is on it non-stop. And our team, our SEO team and our creative team is on this as well. It is a non-stop process, but as long as you're doing it with that, answering the right questions, that's like, if you do that, you answer the questions that people want, then you're gonna get results because you're the only guy who's answering them.
That's exactly right. And a good place to start is building a keyword universe. And I'm not getting into the weeds here because this is one tool called SEMrush, or some people call it SEMrush.
Oh, that was my secret weapon.
And you
can't share my secret weapons with everyone.
A lot of people have access to things,
no,
and they'll never end up really being a power user at all. But you go into SEMrush and you can look at keywords and you can look at competitors and very easily generate a list of keywords. And there's something called a SEO content builder in there as well. But you don't even need SEMrush. It's good. That's kind of next level stuff. But if you want to really get started with digital marketing, you do what I talked about with the Q&A. And then you want to create this 5,000 to 7,000 word article about, in this case that we're using, Scottsdale real estate. And it needs to be comprehensive. And so people ask, well, what should it include? Well, again, don't be a pioneer. Success leaves clues. So type in Scottsdale real estate on Google, look at the top 5 people, and go past just Zillow and people like that, and look at people that are creating really useful content. And then check out the sorts of phrases, the keywords they're using, and develop a long list of those keywords and phrases and ideas. And that's called latent semantic indexing, or rank brain. That's when Google knows what the number 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 ranked people for Scottsdale real estate are talking about. And they will infer, because you're talking about those same topics, that you are de facto authoritative. And that helps your article a lot. But I'm telling you, 5,000 to 7,000 word article that you update a couple times a year, key. And then when your site grows, like yours has, to 2,000 plus pages, a great thing to do is to, I know you pay a lot of attention to link development. You want to prune those links annually and make sure you get rid of any spammy people that are linking in, but also page pruning, which not a lot of people do, which is you look in Google Analytics, anything that's not getting much traffic at all over the last year,
it's just bloat.
Redirect that to either the next category page, the most relevant article, or your home page. And the fewer pages your site has, the more often and the deeper Google will crawl your site.
Well, the less harder it is for Google to go through your system.
Exactly. And Google has what's called a crawl budget for every site. And so what they do is if they see a site that has way more pages and is littered with JavaScript and other elements that represent more work for it to parse through, it'll come back less often and crawl your site not as deeply. So if you're constant, and the fewer pages you have, it's just math. You have only so much Google juice to go around. So if you have a 2,000 page site,
Google juice.
If you have a 2,000 page site, Google will distribute the total Google juice or the amount of Google authority you have in the bank account across the 2,000 pages. If you then prune those pages and get rid of all the ones that aren't performing, and so you have 1,000 pages, let's say, you won't have necessarily double the juice, but it's darn near close, and you will notice an increase in ranking for those other
I'm going to go after this and go and prune my site. You know, the funny thing is, as we do this, is that, and I want to wrap this up with a comments for those people who don't know Jesse, who's, as you can clearly understand, awesome in this arena, and so much more than just, you know, a one-trick pony of one side of marketing. Your knowledge and your understanding of your integration of marketing is so extensive. And it's so thoughtful, and it makes so much sense. It's like, of course, that's logical. And this is the irony of we go through in this business and we look at what we're doing, just be thoughtful about it. And I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for the thoughtfulness that you bring into this conversation, the thoughtfulness that you bring into your marketing of what you do, how you put this together, and how you think about the experiences that you're giving the consumers who are on our sites, looking at our information, looking for education, and giving them what they need without giving them a lot of fluff and noise that they don't need. Absolutely. So, and if you want to, you want to work with Jesse, it's more than just audience. There's a whole plethora of interactive marketing that goes together. And if you're a buyer out there or a seller, hopefully this podcast helps you understand that our understanding of how to market, how to sell, how to deliver added value benefit to be better at selling your property or helping you buy a property by virtue of all the marketing tools that we have, there's value there. There's value that, you don't want to go it alone. So, Jesse, as always, thank you.
Thanks, David, for having me.
And thank you, everyone, for watching this podcast. Hopefully it's helped those who have seen all the information that we put out. And stay tuned for another episode of the Better Decisions podcast.